Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to visit with you all this evening. I'm Breandan with SalezWORKS, and Mark and I have been partnering and supporting fractionals for, oh gosh, probably over 10 years. We launched Freeway to Fractional in 2023. And since then, we've gotten to know just a lot of really incredible people. And throughout our tenure and working on getting the word out about what we're doing and just helping people understand that what the opportunity looks like in fractional services, we have certainly met a diverse group. So we thought it would be a lot of fun to meet and find out where you all are coming from right now, because there's a lot of different directions we can go with the presentation this evening, but we want it to be as impactful for those of you that took time out of your evening in order to come and join us. So what I would like to know is, would you share what you're currently doing for work? Are you working as a CFO, a controller? Are you in a W-2 role? Are you currently looking for opportunities, or are you currently fractional? And then also, where are you located geographically? And then most important, we want to know what you are most hoping to get out of today's session. And then as you're doing this, there's also a poll that Charlotte is going to be launching for us.
You can launch that anytime, Charlotte.
So keep typing and let us know this, but we want to make sure that you launch and tell us just a little bit about your background. So are you coming at this from the perspective of you've got a finance background, you've been in accounting, or you've been in tax or other consulting? So we want to get a sense of what this is, because as Mark's chatting, the thing is I've presented at a lot of these, and one of the things that I've discovered is you may not want to hear as much from the marketing person as you do from the actual fractional CFO who is doing the thing. So you have a perspective from both of us. I'm the coach, and Mark's perspective is the guy in the trenches who is doing the work all day, every day, and sometimes on the weekends. So
try not to do weekends anymore. It's all good.
Awesome. All right. Well, Mark, take it away.
It's good. Well, Charlotte, when you get sort of a percentage of each of those from the poll, just break in and let us know.
So we have 25 out of 32 people have responded.
Very good.
Wow, you guys go.
It's all good. Okay. This is in the slides. Don't talk about myself a lot, but I've been doing this a long time. And the way that Breandan and I became friends and now partners is that she was my marketing or relationship marketing coach, or my network marketing coach, or whatever you want to call it, for many years. And a few years ago, she came to me and we started talking about this trend called fractional. And so we put together a course together called Freeway to Fractional. And since then, I've become sort of a fractional evangelist, for lack of better words. I'm very, very excited to share what this is all about, and pretty much can't think of why anybody would do anything else if they have just a little bit of experience. We're going to talk today about a few items related to what fractional is all about, but I just want to tell you this is a huge topic. We do a stop by my office, Brad Martin and I, with support from Breandan every month, and that's always in the newsletter. So if you want to be and continue to participate in these types of conversations, please look it up. It's the second Wednesday, third Wednesday of the month.
Yeah.
Right. So please consider bringing your wisdom. We love having people that are in fractional so that they can share their wisdom as well. So that's a little bit of that. This is sort of a time to ask questions. You can put them into the chat, and Breandan's going to be monitoring that. But if you just can't control yourself, just raise your hands like Angie did. Angie, what can we help you with?
Well, my question was, what if you have all three and they're evenly distributed? So I just didn't respond. So I figured they'd cancel out.
Yeah, pick your favorite. It's all good.
If there's one that you really want to focus on building out, share that.
Yeah, that's good. But we're really pretty casual around here when we do these conversations. So if something comes up, I will tell you that I saw the one question about contracts and whatnot, and we're not going to deal with that. I'm not your attorney, but I will mention that it's really state by state important to understand what your potential liability is by presenting yourself as an officer of a company. So you need to just think about that. I'm not going to go into that really tonight, but I thought I'd mention it before we jump in. Everybody ready?
Are you ready for me to end the poll and show you the results?
Yes, please. Look at that. We got finance people and accounting people.
And a few with tax and consulting.
I get you. And I'm with whoever it was. I have a little of all those backgrounds. I've slowly moved from tax up and accounting up to finance, or changed my life into more of a finance role as I've done more and more things. So this is great to know, and we'll talk about that. It's fantastic. Okay, we are recording, so don't say anything bad about Matt, or anybody else in the FENG. You can dish on me all day. We're going to start first with the definition of fractional. Fractional is here. Ben Wolf has written this book many years ago now, and it's worth it. But basically, it means you're selling a fraction of your time, a portion of your time, to many companies at the same time. We love interim, but interim's full-time for one company all the time, for a period of time. And then consulting, I like to say consulting is, identifying an issue, spending 70 hours a week in a conference room, solving it and leaving, and maybe not changing any of the behaviors or problems that are underlying the issues. And so you don't necessarily fix anything. So that's sort of my sarcasm on that. But consulting is fractional, and I like to call it fractional leadership, whether it's finance or IT or whatever, is really becoming part of the C-suite for smaller to mid-sized companies for a period of time. My clients last 3 to 5 years on average, where I'm just part there, and we set goals and we do 90-day reviews of what we've accomplished, and we continue to make changes in their company. So just as long as we distinguish between fractional and consulting and interim. Nothing wrong with consulting and interim. It's just not what we're talking about. First question, or first issue. So many people don't really understand what they love to do and what they're really good at, and the value of it. You have to define your service and the related value, or you're going to have a heck of a time being a fractional. Okay. So is there something in these questions, is there something that you really would never want to do again? Right? So many of us do things because we've always done it that way, or this is the only thing we know how to do. Well, I'm going to challenge you to dig deep and look at what you really like to do, what you really enjoy doing, and then figure out if there's a market for it. There's so many people out there that think, well, if I get really niche-y and really specific, I'm limiting my opportunities with clients. And that is so wrong. The more specific you are with what you love and what you like, you're good at, and the value you bring, you are definitely going to it's going to be easier to sell. And I've seen people do this. My little quote there, it's going to take a long time, or it's going to take time and effort to build your fractional business. You might as well build one you like. So build it around something you really are good at, and that it's not even work to do. Okay. And then this took me forever. I remember Breandan beating me over the head for years, maybe 9 years. What does a fractional leader provide their clients? What value? We all like to talk about what we do. We all like to talk about we're a fractional CFO and we redo financial statements and whatever we do, those efforts, those actions. But what's really important is to understand why people would benefit from what you do and stop talking about what we do and start talking about the value we provide.
Can I give an example here real quick?
Sure.
Mark? So if you think about attending a networking event and there are 4 financial advisors in the room, you can sit there and literally see people's eyes glaze over with, oh, great, another financial advisor. Well, as the fractional space becomes even more crowded, if you introduce yourself as, my name is so-and-so with such and such CFO firm, you have just lost every opportunity you have to capture the attention of your ideal buyer that may be in that audience, because you literally have their attention for probably 10 seconds. So what Mark is really wanting to stress here, I'm putting words in your mouth.
Oh, good. I learned them all from you in the first place.
You really want to help people understand why they should pay attention to you. And those same 4 wealth advisors that I was talking about, if you sit down and have a cup of coffee with them, you're going to find out that one of them probably does a fantastic job with succession planning for high net worth businesses. And then one of them is probably a fairly new wealth advisor or financial advisor that's not even a CFP yet. He's just getting his feet wet. And then the second one may have been an advisor for 4 or 5 years and is growing and expanding his book of business. And one of them may only work with 401ks. So those are 4 dramatically different people. And they do dramatically different services. But if they describe themselves as financial planners or wealth advisors, they all sound alike. And the exact same thing happens if you're a fractional CFO and you're in the room with 3 other people. So it's far better to lead with what you actually accomplish for people. And I'm happy, Charlotte, if it would be helpful when you send out the follow-up, I can send you all a link to a quick blog post that talks about how you actually relate the value you provide as a fractional leader. And it's all in how you present your transformation statement and what you actually do. So that's my 2 cents worth. Take it. You can have it back, Mark.
I love that. And it's even more important now with all the social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever. You know, if you start sounding just like the other guy, it's really hard to get anybody's attention. But I mentioned this earlier, and this is me after talking to a generalist, and actually have a Matt Budd quote: being all things to all people is the same as being nothing to anyone. And he was saying that in regard to jobs, but it's very similar to folk, competing in this fractional world. So does anybody have any questions about this being specific and defining what you like before we move on to the next section? It's good. It's really hard to do. It's really hard to do because you know what you mean. You know the value you bring. You know what you like to do. Communicating it and making it very clear to other people is the key. The value you bring, and it has to be very simple. And it has. And Breandan mentioned a few minutes ago, people's attention span is like 30 seconds.
Try 10. It used to be 30, but now
that doesn't leave any room for any you-knows. I mean, I got to get 30 out of them, man. So
sorry, you are out of luck, my friend.
It's crazy. But we really do, in our course, we spend the whole first module on defining what you're good at, what you like to do, and what that potential value hypothesis is. And it's really the most important part of the start of what you need to know about being a fractional CFO. We had some questions about pricing. And I should have people raise hands. How many people that are CFOs are doing an hourly model? And I can't see everybody, but can you guys let me know if anybody's raised their hands? There we go. Got a couple. You got a couple. Well, what I'm going to suggest is you need to move away from that. You need to get into retainer pricing. Hourly models make you look like a commodity as opposed to the value. Again, it goes back to the first section that we talked about value. There's hourly, there's project billing, and there's retainer billing. And I went kicking and screaming on hourly. Again, Brendan's seen me do everything wrong. That's why we wrote a course, so we could help you avoid the school of hard knocks.
You're not alone, Mark.
I get it. I'm good. I mean, you know why I'm so good at teaching stuff is I've done everything wrong at least once. So it's good. I know the consequences. But project billing, that's a set price. And then retainer billing is what we're going to talk about a little bit. Oops, I guess this is where we're talking about it. The reason I'm going to ask you to go to retainer billing is multiple. One, once you define the value, you should be able to set a monthly fee to attain that value and continue to demonstrate it. If you go to hourly, what happens is your clients can't budget for you, and they're not obligated to use you, and they avoid you to save a couple $100 until a project's blown up. You're not doing them any favors. And most importantly to us is when I'm on a retainer billing process, I know how much money I'm going to make next month. Now, when I do this, I didn't commit to hours. I didn't commit to days. I committed to people to do this, but you need to do it. It changed my life. Anybody going to go kicking and screaming? Angie, is your hand still up from the first time, or do you?
No, I raised it up again. So within this retainer model, how do you set boundaries in terms of your scope and you avoid scope creep?
I set a set of goals every quarter, and my retainer is based on how many goals that we're going to work on. So if it's 5 or more, it could be $5,000 to $10,000. If it's less, which most of my clients aren't, it's the amount of capacity I'm going to use on a client. Okay. At the end of every quarter, I sit down and we review. And if I'm working more, if it's taking more time, we reset the retainer and we communicate about it. Because we've either attained the goals, it might have been my fault, not usually, but we might talk about the fact that they're not supporting all the goals that they're setting, and maybe it's less, or maybe they're working me harder and there is scope creep. I'm going to boost it.
What's really important, Angie, is that you have a lot of conversations early and throughout as you're delivering the work. For instance, I'm in the middle of a project right now that all of a sudden it started out with just focusing on one avenue of their business that they wanted to work on. And then it came about that they're planning on succession planning. And they also have another new division that they're launching. So the scope of work has, in a sense, tripled. And rather than just lumping everything in, it has moved me from working on this for a 90-day period to transition into a reduced scope 3 months from now, to remaining at this exact same level with first quarter, or the first sprint that Mark referenced. We're focusing on launching one division. And then when that one is in maintenance mode, we transition to the second division. And then the third, so I've basically kept the increased scope and retainer for 12 months instead of it being 90 days.
So in the situation where you're kind of more of a fire jumper, you're coming in and they don't even know what they need, could you put in a retainer with an accelerator so that you don't even wait for a quarter? Because a quarter can be a long time when they're in distress, let's just say.
Usually my first 90 days are all my analysis. And so it's going to be significant. It's going to be a significant fee, so that, and I'm not doing anything necessarily, but doing an analysis and figuring out what they need. And the other thing that and I'm going to get to Reuven and Brett here in a minute, is oftentimes scope creep is stuff you don't do or you shouldn't be doing. So you need to bring in other resources to do that work. If they're asking you to do reports and bookkeeping and whatever, that's not your role as the CFO. So bring in a bookkeeper. I bring in CFOs to my work because I don't want to reschedule or redo their capital structure. It's not what I do anymore. So keep that in mind, that you've got to define and stay focused on the things that get them the value you promised and not get distracted. But Brett, you raised your hand. Can you unmute and ask a question?
Yeah, no, thanks for laying that out, Mark. I think you kind of answered my question. I kicked off with my first client as a fractional CFO probably 45 days ago, and 6 small companies to one entrepreneur. And right now, scope creep is becoming an issue because they don't have a controller. They've got kind of the transactional layer covered with a bookkeeper, but there's just any number of places I can get pulled into. And so I think, the question that was just raised was spot on for me.
It's really good. And remember, you're in control. This isn't like you work 60 hours a week when you were in CFO for, in the Fortune 100 or, or small business, mid business area. You can only do so much. You're only selling so much of your capacity, right? If they start pushing, I have 20 hours a week. And I sell my time based on 20 hours a week. And if somebody wants, I have my rate or what I need to make for the year, and they pay 10% of that rate if they're taking up 10% of my capacity. Mm-hmm. That's it. Okay. And again, I believe I've seen people that call themselves CFOs and they end up balancing checkbooks. CFOs don't do that. Okay. They get people to do it. Either they're going to teach people, you're going to get somebody in-house, or they're going to bring in somebody outside, a consultant or a part-time bookkeeper or whatever it is, or controller, to do that work. If you're getting dragged into stuff that you weren't hired to do, that you didn't sell, you're always going to have scope creep. Reuven, you raised your hand.
Yeah. So what I've done with some clients is I tell them, okay, this project is expected to take X hours, let's say 20 hours or 10 hours a week. And then I say to them, so what I'll do is I'll cover, up to 25 hours for X amount. And then if it goes over, we'll have to, talk about it. So in other words, I'm setting a range or, a minimum and maximum that, they will get. What is your thought about that?
I think that works for a lot of people. I don't talk about hours anymore, just to be honest with you, because I want them to accomplish their goal at the end of every 90 days. It may take me an hour to get that done. Still worth $5,000 or $10,000. So you just have to, get comfortable with it. It's a lot easier to sell a day, a week. You know, this Focus CFO does that. It's great. It's a great repetitive,
It's an understandable.
duplicatable system when you have 250 CFOs. It's good. I'm talking to solopreneurs. They're doing all the work. They're doing all the sales. You got to get paid for all that stuff, right? And so you need to understand your value and sell based on what you're going to accomplish for people. If I'm going to double the value of your business in 3 years from $8 million to $16 million, what's $60,000 to $80,000 a year for a portion of my time? You need to talk to people like that, not I'm a commodity, you buy my hours. Again, everybody's gets their own choice to do that, but that's just the way I look at it. Willard, you raised your hand here.
I did. So the client never asks you on your retainer how many hours it's based off of?
They always ask.
They always ask, and they go, well, and you have to turn that around. It could take more or less hours or more of my time, but what's it worth to attain your goals? What's it worth to get to what you need? What's it worth to get you to not have to be working 80 hours a week?
I often ask the question of my clients, do you appreciate the attorney billing structure that sends you an invoice for a 15-minute phone call? And in a lot of cases, they shake their head and say, no, I really don't like that. And I don't like managing my projects that way either. So instead, we set an estimate of the amount of time I think it's going to take and what percentage of my capacity that you're going to need in order to get done what you want to get done in the time frame that you've laid out. And that's what I've set the budget based on, so that you've got a predictable expense and I know how much time I need to allocate to get your job done. And in a lot of cases, they're quite happy with that.
Yeah, in some months, I don't, if I were doing hourly, some months I go way under. I mean, I don't spend as much time. They're not paying attention, whatever. They've got projects. Other months I might go a little over. It doesn't matter to me. I know I'm going to make X dollars a month from that client. And I'm comfortable with that I'm delivering the value that they need to accomplish their goals.
But it's really important that you communicate with them often to ensure that you are meeting their expectations, because a quiet client is not always a happy client. And to Mark's point, and he talks a lot more with them than you may think he does based on the conversation. He's very engaged and very involved in their business. So
Talk to them a lot, right? Yes. You know, it's weekly calls. And they go, well, what are you doing? I said, I'm not doing anything. I'm managing to make sure you have systems, processes, and people in place to do this, so you're not dependent on me for forever. And we're going to continue to do that. We're going to take I'm getting a little into the weeds. We're going to get the business less dependent on you, and you don't need to build another dependency on me. When it gets to the point where you need a full-time CFO, I'm going to tell you, and we're going to bring them in. Good? Any more hands up?
Did that answer the question about billing? It looks like Tariq still has his hand up.
So I'm going to speak a few things which are the party line from Focus CFO and some of our not.
Right.
Because I've been doing this as a solopreneur for almost 15 years, and I've done it now with Focus CFO for 3 years. So please don't hang me if I say something wrong. Now, with that said,
there are no wrong observations. You're sharing your personal experience.
Exactly.
Correct. But I do have signed up contract with Focus and so on. So to Mark's point, I've done the hourly work, I've done the project work, and I'm not taking any more of those. And I'm strictly doing fractional work, which is basically on retainer basis for the last 7-8 years. And I'm glad that's the way it is. First of all, you got 5 days to sell if you're a CFO. And if one of those, it's a five-legged stool, if you will. If one of those guys go, thank you very much. There is one more waiting. Hopefully you can plug that in. That's one thing. If you're selling half a day, then the equation becomes even 10-legged rule. So you do have a lot of flexibility.
Right.
Billing by the hour has always been tedious. It's good. It's bad practice as I see it. So I'm totally avoiding it. And so the point about the scope creep, it happens all the time. You do your best when you're getting engaged, that you define the scope as best as you can. Some of us will even have a situation, I've done this, I will have a own onboarding fee, which basically means I'm going to find out what I need to do for you or what you want me to do for you. So I build that, let's say, instead of, I give the client an option. I say to them, I could be fully conversant about where you want to go and where you're going and all that. How can we work together in 3 months' time? So you have a choice. In 3 months, you're going to get, let's say, hypothetically 12 days, or you can hire me for 2 or 3 days just to do a scope determination. A lot of the time, the clients don't know what they want you to do, especially if they happen to be in the $10 to $20 million range or even lower. They do not know what a fractional CFO brings to a table. They heard about it, they like the idea, they want to bring you on board to take them to the next level and so on. So do keep this in mind. So they are equally unaware as to what you will be bringing to the table.
Right. My first part of a job is a business valuation or assessment. And I use, depends on what they need, but that's 5 to 10 grand. That could take, depending on them, a couple weeks or a month. But I pay for software on top of that. But by the time I'm done with that, I know a lot about their business.
Right.
Now I can start helping them set goals. In EOS terms, we're setting rocks. We're discovering the rocks. And then I do the same process. I'm not a big EOS person, but I'm doing 90-day goals. And I'm keeping, we're assigning resources and we're managing people and we're getting things done. So it's good. Somebody asked, what's the ideal percentage of your time to leave for business development? Well, if somebody's selling for you, they're taking 30 to 50% of your money. So it's probably 30 to 50% of your time. Right. So that's just the only way I can look at that. I hope that answers your questions. So it's good.
It's typically 4 to 10 hours a week is the best amount of time, depending on how busy you want to be. You always need to be spending 4 hours, anywhere from 4 to 5 hours a week or an hour a day, focusing on business development. I don't care if somebody's looking or bringing you business within your group or not. You still need to have a network and you still need to be looking for your next opportunity, because you are going to be a lot more motivated to keep your pipeline full than whoever's leading your group is. So I just encourage you to keep that, just focus it as that. And then up to, if you're in building mode and you're just getting launched, you need to probably spend anywhere from 15 to 20 hours a week on business development. If you don't have client work, you need to basically treat your own business development like a client engagement.
And for me, I have to be careful because it's my favorite part of my job now. And I have to make sure I have the model week laid out and I only spend so much time. So it's good. Brett, you have your hand up.
Yeah, there may be folks, I know I'm curious on this too. Can you offer some ranges, both in terms of retainer rates and hourly rates? Even though we're not talking hours, we might want to think about that internally, about how we're using our time and how that translates to a retainer. I'm spending 10 hours a week on this client, so how would I translate that to a retainer? What's the hourly rate I might try to get to? Obviously, that could vary a lot based on the size of the business. A $250,000 business versus a $5 million versus a $10 million. Any thoughts to share?
Yeah, I have some. First of all, your rate is not dependent on the size of the business you're working for. You may do less for them. I have one client that's $1,000 a month. I have lunch with them once a week, and I talk to them. But I like them. So it's okay. But he's a small business, but really you have to bill based on the value you're bringing and the amount of time or the amount of the capacity that you're providing them. Now, the reason that most people have moved up market, right? You're not doing startups, it's because they don't have any money. Okay. And they're not ready for you. My goal is $10 million, revenue companies or $2 million in earnings, because I can move the needle on that company and show great value growth there. Where if I'm working with a $500,000 company, even if you triple the value of the business, all of a sudden you're expensive.
Can I jump in here for a second?
Sure.
And give another perspective also?
Mhm.
So there was a question that came up early in our presentation about the range of services that you offer. And to Mark's point, if you're going to be truly offering a fractional service that's going to have a decent retainer and a significant chunk of your time invested in it, they need to be able to afford to pay you a fair wage for that time. With that being said, if your heart is in working with small businesses, consider the model that Mark and I have adopted, where you have a fractional offering or a reduced scope offering that helps that small business get started. Or you may work with a growing company or an established company that is at a particular moment in their growth stage where they only need your advisory services. And in those cases, you may be paid anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 or $4,000 an hour, just based on the fact of what you are allowing them to accomplish. I know different professionals in the finance space that are very proficient at helping SaaS companies with their Series A or Series B funding. And they've got connections, they've got a network, they've got credibility that they bring to the table when they're on the advisory board or the board for the company. And that is worth a heck of a lot to that business owner. So you're going to get paid a lot. There's another example that I love to use of a fractional COO that gets paid $1,800 an hour. And her engagement is roughly 2 hours a month with her client. But everything that she delivers allows them to scale from $500,000 a year. Her target clients are solopreneurs who are making $500,000 a year or more that want to scale to 7 figures. And she has a 6-month, let's call it a coaching program, that basically walks them through month by month by month what they need to focus on. And she's done enough of these engagements. She's created the systems, the framework, the workbook, the worksheets, the trainings, so that she can literally deliver what would in essence be 10 hours worth of coaching and consulting with only 30 minutes of her time.
That's exactly.
And then she spends time in the one-on-one session talking specifically about their circumstances and what they need to do in order to apply the concept. So don't get stuck thinking about the value that you bring is only the time that you are engaged directly one-to-one, because there's a lot of different ways that you can structure your intellectual property to be able to deliver a lot of value.
That's really good, because you guys look at your experience and if you don't have that experience, you can't even do what you're offering to do. Right? But you bring so much value, and it's not tied to many hours you work. Again, a couple slides back, I said, don't make yourself a commodity. That's why I led there. Because if you're selling your hours, you're selling hours, not value. So it's good. Tom said he needs an equity kicker. Yeah, if you're doing small business or startups, they're great. I just won't do them anymore because I've done too many, just to be honest with you. it looks good on paper, and then 3 years later, thousands of hours and no money. I do set up people to transfer or transition or sell their business as part of it. I do co-broker, and I get a percentage of the brokerage fee from the broker. I've negotiated with 3 or 4 different brokers for that. So those are my big upsides, but that does not reduce my retainer. Okay, just so you know. So it's good.
That's how you get paid for your network, your connections, and what you have invested in building your career experience to this point.
Nowhere else to wallpaper with stock. I love that. Yeah, I've been there. I'm a startup junkie. I mean, I really am. But it doesn't pay the bills. And, you go 3 years, I call them lottery tickets. I always have one going, high value, low potential, right? So, if you have a little time, put that in your schedule and work on a few of those. There's nothing wrong with that. It keeps my blood flowing. I love doing those things, but I've also found you can go deeply in debt if you don't have a base revenue, base income from your fractional services with clients that are paying a fair rate. Okay. Good. All right. Here's the third one. We've been working hard here. This is the biggest reason to become a fractional leader. Control of your time. For your friends, your family, your health, and it's got to all balance. What I often see is we get into this and we do a great job of selling and we take on, and all of a sudden you're working 60 hours a week and you think you're making a lot of money, but you're not. You're just working like you used to, but you're not in salary anymore. You're just not charging enough. So you think you have to work more hours. Does that make sense to everybody? Don't create the monster you're trying to escape.
Everybody hear that?
Anitha.
Because that's really easy to do.
Hi, Mark. This is Anita here. I have a quick question for you. How do you, I know you said you take 3 months to scope out what is required of them. How do you balance that with how many people they may have, whether it's a bookkeeper, and you need additional resources to actually deploy the goals that you're setting with them? How do you manage that?
Well, first of all, how do I explain it? That's a good question. Through the analysis or assessment process, I'm going to identify issues that need to be fixed. And then we're going to start working through them. If they got people in the wrong seats of the bus, that's painful. It might take a little while. But you keep asking for reports and you stop, as an example for bookkeeping and whatnot. If you're not getting the results you need, it's pretty clear that they don't have the right people. And I used to be this guy that thought, oh, that knowledge that old bookkeeper has is irreplaceable. And I fought to keep them on. Don't. Get a new bookkeeper. It doesn't have to be in-house. Or outsource some of that stuff. You just have to get the things that a normal CFO, CEO, business owner needs to get. And if they're not willing to invest in getting that information, right, and get their business organized to grow, it will, there's no reason for you to be there.
And I will jump in here on this one, because one of the things that's really important for you to talk about with them early, Anita, is what are some of the challenges or the non-negotiables in the role that you are taking on to support them. So I will ask questions about, okay, so what is off the table in terms of discussion points? Are there key employees that have to be retained no matter, what their competence level is because they're relatives? Or does somebody have compromising pictures that you can't let them go? I mean, I ask all the questions to make sure that I'm clear about what their expectations are. And we will typically have conversations around what are going to be the painful issues for them to discuss. And it's really important that you have these conversations early. And Mark is not talking about it. He is probably one of the absolute best that I've seen at having these conversations and getting to what are the non-negotiables in the organization that they're not going to change. But then going in what you have to do to manage around it. And you can also set expectations that state, okay, so if we're dragging dead weight, it's either going to slow down getting the results you're looking for, or it's going to limit what the possibilities are. We are going to run into problems here. And if you set that expectation, it's just going to make your life so much easier later on.
Can I ask a follow-on to that?
Sure.
How many pre-meetings and how many people within the organization, and I'm assuming this depends on the size of the organization, do you meet prior to taking on the engagement?
With my engagement, I will typically just meet the senior leadership, and then I'm on the clock. So whereby Mark's engagements are 90 days, when people bring on fractional sales or fractional marketing, they tend to have an accelerated timeline in mind. So I normally have to have some demonstrated wins within 30 days for them to really be comfortable making the investment and committing the resources and attention. So with mine, I'm going to have just the leadership in the initial conversation, but then my 30-day assessment is going to be spent with their team. And then throughout, normally it's weekly meetings talking about what I'm finding and what I'm seeing and getting clear on what the non-negotiables are and what are the equations that are variable within their organization and what can be shifted or adjusted.
Thank you.
It's really good. Now, the other thing that I will tell you is during those initial meetings, their earnings might be just growing or flat, which is another reason I work with bigger, companies that have close to 2 million in earnings, because they can't break that barrier. They want to get to 20 million or $30 million in sales. And I show them that their earnings are actually going to go down. That's their investment to set themselves up to break through that future growth. So they should come in there knowing they're going to invest in changing their systems, processes, and people. And it's going to cost them some earnings in the first couple of years we work together. They're not necessarily going to make, sometimes I help them. Sometimes it's the low-hanging fruit is their gross profit margins too darn low. So they may still make more money, but I don't go in with the expectation that earnings are going to go up tomorrow. So
does that help?
It's good.
Yeah, it does. I guess then basically when they are hiring these fractional CFOs, Mark, to your point, if they're going to be investing, that means the time horizon that they have is like 2 to 5 years at least. Is that what normally your engagements, or it just depends on?
Yeah, I will, I have sort of an attitude about this as well. There's these people that come in and say, we can fix your business in 90 days. I find that business owners aren't even honest with me until, I know them for 6 months to a year. I don't really know them well. I'm knocking off stuff. I'm improving things. I'm learning, but I don't really know the real issues for quite a while. So it's going to take a while. And Focus CFO is so great at building relationships with people and being there, right? Their average client's 3 to 5 years. They've got people that have been there 10, 15, 20 years. I quit the fractional business for a while my clients I came back, they go, well, we've been waiting for you to come back, right? So, I mean, you become family or their leadership team. They really become dependent on you. But don't think you can answer and understand everything about them in, 30 days. It doesn't happen.
Thank you.
So Brett, you had a question also that was referencing the 90-day goals. So the question that he's asking, Mark, is when you reset goals, do you also rescope the agreement and rate every 90 days based on the related goals and document via your scope of work?
It's in my base agreement that we will reset goals as necessary, the retainer as necessary, and we'll discuss it every 90 days. So some people, their retainer might go down because they're not doing what they promised they were going to do. So they don't need me as much. Other people, it's going to go up. It's all based on what they need and what they're willing to do. Tariq's up again. Appreciate that, Tariq. I can't hear you. I think you're muted, buddy.
Sorry. Just a quick comment on the same subject. We dial up, we dial down. Initially, you go in with the expectation, in our case, whether the client needs you half a day a week for the whole month, or do they need you 1 day a week? We'll make a judgment call. There's no rule. But once you had the discovery meeting, the assessment meeting, you're getting to a point where you're getting to know about 10, 20% of their business. And to Mark's point, you don't know their business for first 90 days. There's no way to get to know them in 30 days. So what we do normally, depending on the sensitivity, some will say, okay, why don't you come in 2 days a week and we'll dial back. The other will say, well, come in for half a day a week. We'll see where we go from there. So
yes.
And in 90 days, we do a whole reassessment of the thing, saying, this is what we thought we were going to do. And this is the reality on the ground. We're burning 20% all the time. Over, the scope creep comes in and all that. So we need to either raise it or renegotiate the whole thing.
Right. It's got to be, and I do it every 90 days. I mean, it's just every 90 days we're looking at it. We're going, what did we accomplish? What didn't we accomplish? Why did we not give the resources? Was this really a goal, or did you set a goal because you thought you needed to? But I'm gonna try to move on because we're going to run out of time here. This is really important, this family, this life balance. Again, sometimes we get out of balance for a little while when we're learning this business, but you really need to make sure that you have time for everything, and you should be paid enough. Your history, the value you're bringing, if you're not getting paid enough, if you're not making a living or making enough, you need to go back to the first two issues here. What's the value you're bringing, and how are you billing for it? But the reasons,
non-negotiables,
right? These are the reasons that people become fractional CFOs or fractional leaders. I love my life. I work remotely. It's just, we can talk about it. You guys can call me anytime, but this is what it's all about. And if you have kids, or if you have aging family members, I mean, I couldn't even have kept a job there for a while with my parents, full time. There's no way. But I was able to work around with my clients and still continue to do well. And number 4, yes.
my favorite.
Somebody, if you have to do business development, there are groups like Focus CFO. Tell Brad I talk about you all the time, by the way, about him all the time, Tariq. But
Will do.
you have to do business development. And my favorite quote, and I finally looked up who said it, is nothing happens until someone sells something. And it's Arthur Motley of all people. And he was the publisher of Matt, back 100 years ago that said this. But you have a couple of choices. You can join a group that does business development. There's a lot of issues. We're not talking about joining a group and all the pros and cons of that tonight, but make sure you understand the culture and what they really do. Or you can be a solopreneur, but you do not have to be this guy that could use car sales. If you join a group, you can get all the potentially these benefits: business development, training, coworkers, administrations. But again, we encourage you to understand their processes and culture. A lot of groups, not all of them, say they're CFOs and they're selling controller work. If you want to do controller work, that's a great place for you to work. If you want to do CFO work, that's probably not the best place for you to work, because you're going to end up doing stuff you don't want to do. So make sure that you know what their business development looks like, what they sell, and how you're going to fit into that culture. Okay. Solopreneurs, we do it all. I just can't answer to somebody else, right? So I'm happy. And if you continue to allocate the right amount of time to your business developments and then balance against your clients, at first you're 100% business development, but then you sort of balance it out. And now I'm probably 20-80. But I've got a great, I built friends, relationships, referral partners that Breandan teaches us about. And I have a really nice flow of business, and I'm very pleased. It didn't happen overnight. If you're a solopreneur, you should have errors and omissions insurance. And yeah, I would absolutely have an LLC, somebody.
And it's general liability policies aren't super expensive to get. And I'll tell you that I think our favorite is the Hartford, in order to find a really affordable GL policy, and then make sure that you do have errors and omissions based on what work you're performing, and be very clear when you're interviewing your insurance agent about the work that you're performing. Right.
And errors and omissions is good. Everybody should have it. It's cheap as well. But if you run over somebody while you're working with your car, it can be a problem. So make sure, even talk to your regular insurance policy if you're doing business with your personal vehicle. Just make sure you understand it. So it's a good question. But anyway, all these questions, the reason we created Freeway to Fractional, and there's a link, and it'll be there in your when Charlotte shares the slides. You should definitely check us out. It's very inexpensive. We're building a great community of people that share, grow, and help each other. And remember, you're in your own business, but you're not alone. Okay, you have friends. You need to meet other fractional service providers. You need to participate in the Stop by My offices, and you need to check out Freeway to Fractional.